Okay.
So Pandora, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Vicki, and good evening to everyone. My name is Pandora Paschal, and I'm the director for the Chatham County Board of Elections. And we've prepared some slides here based on information that was received from Vicki, with information that you might be interested in hearing about tonight on the presentation. So we're just going to go through the slides, and as she said, if you have questions, put them in the chat. And if anything is pertaining to any of the slides that we are talking about, then you can stop us and say, we've got a question about that, okay? And then we'll just move through the slides. Well, first, I want to say thank you for y'all for allowing us to do this. It's always important to give information to citizens about voting and government. So again, we want to just thank you for having us to do this. The first slide is voting in Chatham County, and since we have a May primary coming up on the 17th, we'll be giving you some information about that. Next slide.
Can you see the next slide?
No, can't.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to stop and start over again here. See what is going on.
That's okay. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
I can see it now. This is the Chatham County Board of Elections. These are the Chatham County Board of Elections members. For those of you who live in Chatham County, sometimes it's a good idea to put a name with a face. From left to right, as you see, that's member Frank Dunphy, Secretary Charles Ramos, Chair Lori Hazy, member Mark Moroso, and member Amy Meek. We have a 5-member board. Next slide. This is the contact information for our board members, for anyone who may need to contact the board directly. If you can't get what you need from me as a director or any of the other staff members, you can contact a board member directly if you have a problem that you would like to talk to them about. So these are their email addresses. Next slide. Thought it would be interesting for people to know how board members are selected. Each of the North Carolina's 100 counties has a county board of elections, and each one has 5 members who has to be registered voters in that county. The state board of elections appoints the 4 members, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, to each county board. The state chairs of the Republican and Democratic parties recommend 3 registered voters to the state board. Then the state board chooses 2 of the members from each party to serve on each county board, and they serve a 2-year term. And then, of course, the governor appoints the chair of each county board. Next slide. And this is the oath that the board members take whenever they are appointed to the board. They do have to take this oath, and the state board of elections may remove any member of a county board for any of those reasons that's listed there. So they will be removed by the state board of elections. Next slide. These are some of the duties of the county board of elections, and I have also put a link up there among other duties the county boards have. As you can see, they have quite a bit of duties. What they do, what they've done is they have delegated a lot of those duties to me as the director. I don't have any quasi-judicial authority. I don't get to vote on anything. I am more or less the person who just gives them information and direct them with information that we have researched and found to give them direction on making decisions. So I don't have any quasi-judicial powers. That's up to the board. But those are some of they make issues and rules, regulations, and instructions for guidance for election officers. They appoint the chief judge, judges, and assistants, and other election officials. Now, the chief judges and the judges, the names are submitted by the parties. And they are appointed every 2 years. And the parties will submit names to us, and then we give them to the board for approval. Then, of course, they investigate any irregularities or any non-performance of the duties and violation of laws by the election officers and other persons, and then report violations to the state board. We contract for printing of ballots, other supplies. That's what the staff does. We buy and maintain the voting booths, ballot boxes, registration and poll books, everything, maps, flags, all kinds of supplies. Next slide. They also count absentee and provisional ballots and other official ballots required to be counted. They approve them. They certify results in all ballot items on the official ballot in the county. Order a recount in any ballot item where necessary to complete the canvass. And we also conduct any recount ordered by the county board or the state board. And we also conduct hearings on elections protest. Next slide. Board meetings are generally held on the third Tuesday of each month. Currently, the meetings are held virtually via GoToMeeting because of the pandemic, and we don't have a large enough space here at our office to accommodate a lot of citizens. So we've been doing it virtually now since the pandemic began, and hopefully we'll be back soon to where we can have citizens actually come in person to our meetings. The link right there to sign up to receive notice of meetings. Anyone who is interested in attending the meetings or obtaining the meeting information can sign up at the e-notifier, which is at that link, and then put your information in and you will receive notice of meetings. Now, those meetings listed there, those are the regular meetings. The board do have additional meetings whenever we start doing absentee ballots by mail. They will have absentee meetings. And those meetings will be on a separate sheet with the dates on it, posted on the website. And the public is invited to attend. Actually, we encourage that, especially for transparency, so you can see how we do things and know that we're doing them in an orderly fashion. Next slide. This is the staff. We took this picture. As you can see, we're all masked. This was, when did we take this picture? Sometime?
We took it in August.
In August of last year. So this is the staff here. That's Donald. He's one of our temp employees. Then you see Chance, election specialist. And then I'm in the middle. Deputy Director Steve is on the side of me. And then, of course, there's Madeline Mason on the end near the flowers. She is the election assistant that you will see when you come into the office. Next slide. Here is the Board of Elections mission. The mission of the Chatham County Board of Elections and the Elections Office is to plan, organize, conduct secure elections in Chatham County according to state and federal election laws. Also to ensure that all residents have the right to vote and vote in fair and impartial elections. Next slide. These are some of the services that we provide, that we oversee in the office. We manage the voter registration and the secure voter records. We oversee campaign financing, manage candidate filings, produce official ballots. We recruit and train poll workers. We order and keep election equipment operating effectively, select and prepare voting locations, coordinate all logistics for early voting, absentee voting, and election day voting. Next slide. Chatham County, this is where the office is located. We are at 984 Thompson Street, Suite D, here in Pittsburgh. We've got the directions in parentheses there, where the Board of Elections is located 1.1 mile east of the courthouse circle on the north side of Business 64, and you turn at the sign for Platinum Commons, and we're located behind Miracle Ear. And there is the Board of Elections email. If you want to email the office, that email comes, we check that email daily. Those are the hours of operations. We are open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. There's our phone number, and then there's our mailing address. And then, of course, there's our website, which has a lot of information, valuable information on it for you to go to and find just about anything that you're looking for. Next slide. And here are the staff's contact information. If you need to email me, there's my email. If you can't get me, you can email any of the other staff, but we will respond to your email promptly. Next slide. And there's a picture of our office. It looks a little bit different now, but it's the same building and it's in the same place. We haven't moved. Next slide. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Chance Mashburn, who will talk about getting involved and becoming an election official.
All right, good evening, everybody. I hope that everybody's doing good.
He's muted.
I think we lost the vid audio here.
Yeah, he's muted.
Never mind, it's me.
All right, can you hear me better?
There you go.
I'm muted.
All right.
Hold on, Chance.
And there you got speed signs.
Okay, can you hear us better now?
Yep, that's good.
All right. Oh, back to the previous slide. All right. So were you able to hear the first part of my speech or?
No.
Okay, I'll just start over. So I'm Chance Mashburn. I'm the election specialist here. And I want to thank you so much for inviting us here this evening to talk about Chatham County elections and this 2020 primary and getting involved in elections. I want to say that if you ever want to volunteer and work with the Board of Elections, odds are that you would pass through me, either email, phone, or by dropping in the office. As you see here in this PowerPoint slide, this is a brochure and it has duties and responsibilities that chief judges, and election assistants do. Now, if you're interested in becoming a chief judge or a party judge, you will need to reach out to your registered party chair of the Republican or Democrat Party and let them know that you're interested in becoming in those roles. Those are the ones who submit names to our office and let us know who they would like to be selected as a chief and party judge, and we take those names and submit them to our board for approval. Now, if you want to be an election assistant, you can go ahead and fill out an application. And this is what the application does look like. It is attached to our website and you can download it, mail it in, and send it to us field. Now, if you are so interested in being a chief judge or judge, you can still mark that box right there on the application and we can let the party chairs know that you are interested and see where things lay. And that is a 2-year term. Pandora had mentioned that earlier. Now, I'm also going forward, hopefully the start of next month, we will have a portal. So where you can just go online to our website and you can go ahead and fill it out and submit the form, and it automatically will have your information in which position you'd like to serve. So really excited about that. Hopefully by the start of March, we'll have that portal on our website up and running. If you would like to move to the next slide, I can share the links to Democracy Heroes. So Democracy Heroes is a really great website portal that the state has created. They created this during the 2020 pandemic to help recruit a new line of poll workers, because during 2020 we did lose a lot of our original poll workers, and without Democracy Heroes, I don't know if we'd have been able to be fully staffed, because they were able to reach a different generation that we've ever had before, through social media, through Facebook. the Democracy Heroes portal was throughout the whole entire state. Because even on my Facebook page, my friends were posting it. And I said, oh, that's incredible. It made me feel good to see that my friends were interested in being poll workers and sharing this information, as well as myself. And if you're interested now and you don't feel like filling in this paper application before a portal is created, you can still go to Democracy Heroes, and that information is submitted to the State Board of Elections website. Now, I want to say that I just want to give a shout out to all our poll workers, judges, chief judges, and just let them know that they are a dedicated group. And if you are interested to be a part of it, we would love to have you. And just let me know if you want to shoot me an email that if you're interested, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And I believe you're ready for the next slide. And I believe that is Pandora. Thank you so much.
That's 39 counties.
Okay, so now we're going to look at some important dates for the 2022 primary. Of course, candidate filing resumes 8 a.m. Thursday, February 24th, and ends at noon on Friday, March the 4th. On Friday, April 22nd is the voter registration deadline at 5 p.m. So if you know of someone who needs to register or hasn't registered, then they need to complete their voter registration and get that back into us by April the 22nd.
Yeah.
April 28th, that's when one-stop in-person early voting period begins. May 10th is the deadline for civilians to submit an absentee ballot request form. May 14th is one-stop in-person early voting ends at 3 p.m. and that's on a Saturday. So that would be the last day to vote early. May 17th, that is election day. That's when you will actually go to your precinct and vote. Next slide. Now I just want to talk a little bit about participation in a primary, because sometimes people get a little bit confused about the primary and actually what it is. If you'll go to the next slide. The statewide primaries usually occur on the Tuesday following the first Monday in March, preceding the November general election. Well, of course, that didn't happen this year, since the election got put off to May 17th. So, and the purpose of the primary is to narrow the field of candidates for the general election. So if you go to the next slide. Who may vote? Sometimes people don't understand that in a primary, it's a party primary is what it's called. And people think that whichever party that you are registered with, if you are registered with a party like for Democratic or Republican, then that is the primary that you are eligible to participate in. Now, if for some odd reason you want to participate if you're registered one of those parties but would like to participate in the other, you will need to change your party by the voter registration deadline. And you can be unaffiliated, and then you will get to choose which primary that you want to participate in. One thing you do have to do is be registered. You shall not be entitled to vote or otherwise participate in the primary election of any political party unless that person complies with all the following. You have to be registered. You have to be affiliated with the party. And we do have three parties. We have Democratic Party, the Republican Party, or the Libertarian Party. Any unaffiliated voter who is unauthorized under who is authorized under General Statutes 163-119. So that means if you are unaffiliated, you can participate. You just need to go, when you go into the polling place, state your name, your address, and then state the party ballot that you choose to vote. And unless we have something on the ballot that is nonpartisan, then of course, if you don't want to participate in either primary, then you will get that nonpartisan ballot. But a lot of people get confused and don't realize that they have to be registered with the party if they anticipate on voting for someone in a party. And any 17-year-old who registers to vote prior to the voter registration deadline may vote in the primary election. I think they have to be registered 60 days before, which I think that's in March. of March. March the 18th, I believe, is when those 17-year-olds will go in there to be registered. But only if they will be 18 on or before the day of the general election. Now, there are certain things that if there is a referendum or something on the ballot, I think 17-year-olds are not allowed to vote on some of those referendums. And if you want more information about who's eligible to vote, then you can go to that link and it will tell you more about voting in the primary. Next slide. How and where do you vote? You see all these yellow highlights in this document. Later, back in 2021 in July, I believe, my board started to looking at some of the precincts and the polling places to see if if they were adequate for voting. We were voting in a lot of fire stations. So we deemed that was not actually good for the voters or for the people that worked in the fire station, because if a fire or something happened on election day, that could be kind of catastrophic because it could interfere with voting and it could also interfere with them doing their job. So the board changed some of our polling places. And if you look at that form, you'll see where Albright, who voted at the fire station in Silk Hope, they now vote at the Silk Hope Rural Club.
The elementary school.
It wasn't previously.
Bonnelly now votes at Bonnelly Elementary School. Now Bynum is still at the same place. That was the Bynum Rural Club. They just changed the name of the polling place. It's Bynum Methodist Community Center. So the only thing that's changed about Bynum is the name of the place, but it's still at the same place. Moncure, we made a new precinct when we merged Oakland, part of Oakland with Moncure, and then we merged the other part with Goldston. So then we made Three Rivers, which was voting at a Baptist church there. Now they vote at Moncure Elementary School. And then, of course, Harper's Crossroads changed because we merged Bennett with Harper's Crossroads, and now they vote at the Harper's Crossroads Community Center. Mans Chapel will now be voting at Perry Harrison Elementary School. They were voting at the CCCC Health Science Building, but that building was not adequate enough for them on election day. Pittsboro will now be voting. They used to vote at the community college here in Pittsboro, but now they will be voting at the Chatham County Agriculture and Conference Center. And East Siler City and Siler City was voting at the Earl B. Fitz Community Center, and then they voted at the gym in 2020, but now they'll be voting at the National Guard Armory. And then, of course, North Williams moved from Carolina Meadows to North Chatham Elementary School. We will be sending out verifications because we have to do this by law. We will send verifications out to all the voters who live in these precincts that the polling places has changed, and that will happen around the 1st of April. Next slide. And this is the new map of the Chatham County precincts. As you can see there where Goldston and Oakland and Moncure, you can see where Oakland is gone. That was there in the middle. And you can also see where Bennett and Harper's Crossroads has changed. That's the changes on that map. Next slide. These are the Chatham County voter registration stats as of February 2nd. We have 21,113 voters registered as Democratic, 13,987 Republicans, 22,789 unaffiliated, 316 Libertarians. And if you would like the other stats that go with this, it tells by race, by party, all that, you can click on that link and it'll give you that information. Next slide. Somebody was requesting information about voter turnout, and I just got voter turnout in the even numbered years because that's when we have the primaries and the general election and most presidential elections. The odd numbered years, whenever the municipalities have their elections, and they have very low turnout most of the time. But as you can see, from 2002, the statistics are different. for just about each election. But as you can see in 2020, we had an 83% voter turnout. So that was huge. Chatham County has the highest turnout most of the time in when we have presidential elections and sometimes in the other general elections. Next slide. Okay, and Chance is going to start back by talking about the requirements for voting. Hold on, Chance. Put it down first. Okay.
All right, can you guys hear me? Right, perfect. All right, so requirement for voting. So to be a voter in Chatham County, you do have to live in Chatham County for 30 days or more. You have to be a U.S. citizen, and you do have to be 18 years of age before election day. Now, if you're voting the primary, Pandora had mentioned, you can be 17 if you will be 18 before election day rolls around in November. And you cannot be convicted of a felony. And if you have been convicted of a felony, unfortunately, you will not be able to vote. If you will move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Right there, and as you see in the PowerPoint slide, that is the current voter registration application. Now, you can fill this out if you're a new resident in Chatham County, but also you can fill this out if you want to make a party change or an address change and you still live in Chatham County. You can mail this to us, or since you're already registered in Chatham County, you can fax or email that registration application to us, and we can make that change that way. And also, if you want to report a name change, we can also change that for you as well. Next slide. And where can you register? So there are several options. If you want to do it online, you can do it through the DMV portal. You can register to vote that way. And then you get Never Beat Mail. We can always, we have a link right here to get the application from the State Board of Elections website. And you just fill that application out, print it, and you can mail that to us. And also, and if you're voting from, you're registering in the military, overseas voting, you would click on that link right there from the state, and you would fill that application out and you would send that to us. And also, if you want to visit our website, we also have on the Chatham County Board of Elections webpage, we also have the voter registration application there for you to download, print out, and mail it to us. And you would mail that to our P.O. Box 111, Pittsboro, North Carolina, zip code 27312. And it's never too late if you want to vote during early voting. You can register to vote there only if you're a new resident into Chatham County. And by doing that, you would need to have proof of ID, and that can be done through a voter registration. Sorry, not voter registration. You can do that through voter ID, or sorry, not voter ID, a driver's license or a utility bill, as long as it has proof of your current address and you live there 30 days or more. And you could, on next slide, please. And when you're submitting your application, you can do that in person. You can drop by our office. We'll be glad to have you and see you in our office. And you can mail that into our P.O. Box, which I mentioned before. And if you can give the application to someone else in your family to bring the application into the office if you're not able to make it. Next slide, please. And where you can find more voter information at the Chatham County Board of Elections website. You can also visit the state website in this link right here. And you can also call our office. You could follow the prompts, and 99.9% of the time you will get me, and I'll be glad to talk to y'all. And when polling places are changed, Pandora also mentioned this, we will be mailing out voter registration cards or mailings with the new polling location change on there. And that actually is my last slide for tonight. And I just want to say thank you guys so much once again for inviting us. Pandora and Steve will be finishing the rest of this PowerPoint presentation. And thank you guys so much. And I hope you all have a wonderful night.
I've been answering the questions. Okay, can anybody hear me?
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Seamus. I'm the Deputy Director. If you can go to the next slide. And I've been trying to answer the questions in the chat room as they've been coming in. So just bear with me. The ways to vote, there are 3 different ways to vote. You can vote by mail. You can vote early voting, or you can vote on election day. Next slide. Okay, how you can request an absentee ballot. There are 3 main ways to request an absentee ballot. The first one, the most common way is usually the paper fillable way, which, people just download the application, complete it, and the law has changed now. You need to either mail it into our office or you need to bring it in person. It can no longer be faxed or emailed. The second way to do it is through the online portal. The online portal is something the state board set up where you can request an absentee. If you're already a registered voter, you can go on the online portal and request an absentee ballot. And then from there, as long as you are able to sign on your iPad or your computer, put a signature on there, that online application will come to us and you can request an absentee ballot that way. The third way to do this is for military and overseas voters, and obviously you have to be in the military or overseas to request that. It's a specific form that you can complete, and when we get that in there, we'll send you an absentee ballot for that. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so early voting, there was a question about that earlier about our early voting. Right now, the schedule is still set the same for everybody in the state. So early voting will begin April 28th, and it goes all the way to that final Saturday, May 14th. The hours are 8:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. on Saturdays. We did not have a unanimous, you have to have a unanimous plan voted by the board to approve One Stop. We did not have a unanimous plan, so we've submitted to the state. So right now, there are 2 versions right there. There's one version where we have Sunday voting and version we don't have Sunday voting. So once we hear from the state board which plan gets approved, that's the one we're going to go with. Both plans go Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. Both plans go 8 a.m. until 3 on Saturdays. One plan doesn't have Sundays. The other plan does have Sunday, and it goes from noon until 3 p.m. So once we get approval from the state, which one is get approved, we'll put it on our website. Okay. The sites are still the same. Those are not changing. It's just the times that the state has to determine whether we're open on Sundays or not. Okay. See, next slide, please. Vote for convicted felons. Are y'all answering that? Okay, sorry. Apologize. Same day registration. You can actually register and vote at the same time at One Stop locations. When you do that, our precinct workers are going to add, there's a process that you can go through. When you go into our early voting location and it's a brand new registration, they're going to automatically tell you to go to the help desk table so you don't hold up the table, and they're going to discuss what you need to do the same day registration. The main thing is to making sure the poll worker will make sure you have the right information as far as proof of ID for a same day registration so we can get the process going. Okay, next slide, please. And so we have this at our all of our One Stop locations at the help desk table, and it tells you what documents are required for you to register as a same day registration. It's basically proof, of ID that shows that you live at that place. It doesn't have to be a picture ID or photo ID. It can be something like a utility bill or a bank statement. It just needs to show your name and your address. Of course, if you're registering in Chatham County, the address in Chatham County. The majority of the people have a photo ID, but we just need to have the forms of ID, and it could be a college ID also, something that has your name and your address on there. And again, our poll workers are instructed to ask you before we begin this process, because nothing's worse than you going through this whole process and at the end there you don't have the ID, and then you end up having to either come back or you have to vote provisional. Okay, next slide, please. So when somebody registers the same day, we still have to verify it's the same process. We have to verify that the voter actually lives in Chatham County. So in that process, we have within 2 days, we mail something out, we process the same day registration, and a card gets mailed out to the voter. That's how we verify everybody's voter registration when they register. We mail out a card. If that card comes back undeliverable, we mail out another card. If that second card comes back undeliverable, that registration is denied. So it's the same process as anybody else is registering. The same thing occurs in same day registration. We go through the same process. We just have, within 2 business days, we have to send out the card because it's such a tight time frame. And that's also one of the reasons why, in case you're ever wondering, I'm sure people are wondering what's going on when you vote early. Why is somebody writing some numbers or some kind of information on my ballot when they give you the ballot at early voting locations? That's the reason that happens, is because when you vote early, that has to be a retrievable ballot in case for some reason your registration got denied, or for some reason you voted early but you passed away before election day. We have to be able to pull those ballots because the vote does not count. And the only way we're able to pull those ballots is they have to be a retrievable ballot. And that's why you have those special numbers on there when they're writing something on your ballot. Okay. Next slide, please. This is the most common thing for most people, except for if you don't include the 2020 pandemic, where a lot of people voted absentee, but most people like to vote on election day. It's the most common thing. We polls open from 6:30 a.m. and they're closed at 7:30 p.m. Registered voters need to go to their own precinct to vote. We have some links on our webpage, and the state board also has some links on there. If you don't know where your polling location is, all you basically need to put on there is your address, and it will tell you your polling location. It will give you an address on how to get there. It will even show you pictures of the polling location. So if you're at a church or at a community center, you can see what it looks like if you've never been there before. No photo ID is required in this election unless anything changes, but right now the law says no photo ID. So it's still the same procedures on election day. You state your name and your address, they look you up, and then they give you a ballot. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, there are help for those that, that need help with disabilities. There are numerous ways of voting. We don't turn anybody away. Everybody has a right to vote if they're registered to vote. So there are a few ways you can vote. Curbside voting is becoming more and more of a, I wouldn't say popular, but it's more and more important. People are utilizing it because you can also utilize during COVID. It's one of those things where you pull up and they get your information, and we can bring the ballot to your car if you're unable to walk. Yeah, if you're unable to walk in to the polling location. We also have MAT teams. Those are multi-partisan assistant teams, one from each party, that go to facilities. These are retirement homes or any kind of rehab facilities, anywhere, actually even at a voter's place, home, anywhere where somebody cannot make it and request assistance, they can contact our office. We send in a multi-partisan assistant team on there. They're able to complete your absentee ballot for you. And then when you receive your ballot, they can come over there and help you with that. Let's see. There's also a portal. The state has also done an online portal for those that are blind or visually impaired. It's the same kind of process as requesting an absentee portal. It's just a little bit different for those blind and visually impaired. And when they get on that portal, we're able to send them a ballot. And then there's also some, if you click on the State Board of Elections website, the link down there, it can tell you some other information on how we can assist people with disabilities. Okay, next slide, please. Now, Chatham County is unique. We were the first county in North Carolina to adopt heart machines. Most counties, and if you're in Durham and Orange County, you do not use heart machines, you use ES&S. We use heart machines. Our voting machine that takes paper ballots is the Verity Scan machine. And then we also have what we call the Verity Touch Writer machine. It's an ADA machine. And the way the Verity Touch Writer machine works, it will, if you have any type of disability, hearing impaired or visual or anything like that, it will actually print the ballot for you and mark it for you. And once you're done that, you bring it in, we put it in the Verity Scan machine. And all this information is on our website too for our new voting machines for those of y'all that are interested in that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so there's most common question is how are our votes tabulated? Everybody wants to know how they're tabulated, wants to make sure that everything is secure. Absentee by mail. So the way the absentee by mail person process is somebody will request an absentee ballot. When it comes into our office, we check the absentee request form. We verify to make sure that that person is registered in Chatham County. We also verify that their ID information matches, which is their last four of their social security or their driver's license number. Once we verify that they are a registered voter in Chatham County, then the system will generate the ballot that goes with the voter. Once we get that ballot generated, we mail it to the voter. The voter then completes the absentee ballot. When they complete the absentee ballot, there are instructions on there. They need to have two witnesses that witness them completing the ballot and putting in the envelope and sealing it, or a notary. Once all of that is done, they can either mail the ballot back to us or bring it to us in person. When we receive the ballot, after that absentee ballot has come in, we check to make sure that the envelope is sealed. We check to make sure that the voter signed the envelope, that the two witnesses' signatures are there and their information is there. Once all of that is correct, then we have absentee meetings once a week where the board approves these absentee ballots and they get to view them and make sure everything's okay. And once they approve them, then the ballots are open and put into an absentee machine where they're counted. And then on election night at 7:30 p.m., those results are shown to the public. If there's an issue with the absentee ballot, say they didn't get the two signatures, say they forgot to sign the envelope, then we contact the voter and there's ways where they can either get a cured letter if that's allowed, or we resend them another absentee ballot to tell them to do it properly. Or if it's too close for them to get that absentee ballot, then we give them options telling them if one stop's still going on to go to one stop or go vote on election day. So we do contact the voter if there's any problems. The other process is absentee in person. That is when you go to a one-stop location. And again, you go to a one-stop location, you state your name and your address. If you've never registered before, you have a right to register and we go through the whole process. If you're already registered, it's the same thing. You get to do, you need to state your name and your address. We find you in the system. We generate the ballot that goes with you. You take that ballot, you go into the booth, you complete it, you come back, you put it in the machine, and the machine counts it. Every week, just like in the absentee meetings that we were talking about with absentee ballots, that one-stop SOS application where the voter has signed stating that they are the voter and that they abide by all the rules, that gets approved by the board, and that shows your absentee ballot being approved. And again, all of those don't get counted until 7:30 on election night. Let's see, there's a couple of questions. There were two witnesses instead of one. The law has changed. It is now again back to two witnesses. They did one witness last year because of the COVID. The law has changed. It is still back to two witnesses. So you need two witnesses or a notary for the absentee ballot to count. There was also another question about when absentee ballots will be going out. We don't even know what kind of ballot it is yet because they haven't filings to resume again in February. It ends February 28th. We're assuming that after the filing's over with, probably within a week or two after that, we will get the ballot. There's a lot of process involved in getting the correct ballot. So as soon as the ballot gets available, for those that have requested absentee ballots, they'll be mailed out. But rest assured, you'll have plenty of time to get your ballot and complete it, mail it back to our office. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Now on election day, it's a little bit different. You go to your polls open, you go in and you vote. At the end of the night, once everybody's completed and the polls are closed, the chief judge brings back the machine with the voted ballots back to our office, and that's when those ballots are counted on election night. The early voting and absentee ones, those get counted at 7:30. That's why when you see at 7:30, as soon as polls are closed, usually the first results that you see published are your absentee by mail and your one stop, because those have been locked up and in our office, and that's when we release them. Election day, as they come in from each precinct, the card gets read and the results are sent to the state. Provisional ballots, that process involves when the provisional ballots come into our office, it requires us to do a little bit of research. Our staff does research to make sure that if they're registered or if there was a DMV issue, there's a lot involved in the provisional ballot process. And what we do is we check the provisional ballots that are good to go, that there was an issue on our end or DMV end and should be counted. Those go on one side, and then there's another pile where those person we weren't able to find a voter, they weren't registered, or for some reason they just didn't qualify for this election. That goes on another pile. There's a provisional meeting, and we present our findings to the board, and that's where those ballots get approved. Provisional ballots do not get approved by us, the staff. It's actually our board members that make the determination and decision whether these provisional ballots are counted or not. And once the board makes a determination which provisional ballots get counted, we have a provisional machine that we put that in, and that's how we get those counts. Okay. Next slide. There's been a lot of things on the news. I'm sure everybody's been watching about election security. And so we wanted to address that a little bit, especially with Chatham County and the new voting equipment. So we wanted to give a little bit of security on our machines. First of all of our ballots are paper ballots. It's not just Chatham County, that's a state law now. And so no matter what happens, ballots are paper ballots. So if we needed to do a recount, we do it by running them through the machines again through the paper. Never ever, none of our voting machines are ever connected to the internet. They are not connected to the internet. Nothing is connected to the internet when it comes to our voting equipment. Our voting machines are not on the internet when you're voting on election day at one stop. When things come back to our office and we take the thumb drive out to read the ballots that got counted and they go into another machine, that machine is also not connected to the internet. There's no way for those voted tallies to be hacked. It's not connected to the internet. The only thing that's connected to the internet is our director's computer when our director transmits the results to the state that go live for the public to see who voted for what. That's the only time. It is all of it's clean thumb drives. As far as our heart machines, we do LNA testing, and also the SNS counties do that also. But LNA testing requires, before we even send out those machines to either a one-stop or election day or even our absentee machines, we have to thoroughly test these machines to make sure that the ballots are read, coding's done correctly. There's a lot involved, and all of this is also open to the public. So when we do this, we really invite the public to come see this. Our board is also there most of the time. They're watching this. We have to test each and every machine before we send it out to make sure everything's done properly. We also, because it's a heart machine, the company is out of Austin, Texas. All of the supplies that we get, the thumb drives we use, come straight from the heart company. They come in secure to our office, so it's not something you buy off the shelves. They've already pre-programmed, and we actually have to cut to get into that thumb drive. Is a big secure box that comes in. The North Carolina State Board of Elections also verifies the coding from these ballots. So before we even send out any ballots, there's a lot of procedures done to make sure everything's secure and there aren't any problems. I know a lot of people have had issues, and these links that you see on our webpage, you can click on it to get some more information. But and we have some videos on our webpage if you go to training that show you kind of our voting equipment and the processes we go through. But we really encourage the public to come look at how we do things, especially when it comes to security. Okay. Next slide. Okay, like we mentioned before, you can always find all this information. The State Board of Elections is a really good source. A lot of the links that y'all saw earlier in our slides come from the State Board website. That's on top there. And then you can also come to our website. We have a lot of information on our website. I think the most common link that we are trying to update for every election is the training link. That's where you can see what our chief judges do and how our voting equipment operates. But everything we try to be as transparent as possible. So any questions that you can't find off of our website or the state board, call us or email us, and we'll get you an answer to what you need. And that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for inviting us here. If there's any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. All right, I'm gonna hold on. Hold on, Chance. Okay.
So are there any questions that haven't been already
All
answered
right.
in the
There
chat?
was a couple of questions that were asked. I wasn't able to respond to everyone in the chat box originally. I refreshed my chat box and I was able to respond to the last few questions. But one question was, are felons ever able to vote? And the answer is yes. Once they complete their sentence, they can vote going forward in the elections. And also another question was, what is a hearing? And that is a voter challenge and a voter protest. And that can take place at a polling location on election day. And that's why we have a Republican, Democrat judge and a chief judge. And if it comes to like a voter dispute, depending on residency, it has to happen right then and there on site. So a voter, if they're going to vote and someone comes by and say that's their neighbor, and they can say, well, they don't live there. And then that's when that challenge would occur right there. And then that's when the Democrat, Republican, and chief judge would hear that case. But if it happens during early voting, that would happen at our board, and that would be a board meeting, and that would be open to the public. If I'm mistaken, is that correct? Okay, all right. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much for having us here tonight. It was a pleasure meeting you, Jennifer, and Vicky. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and everybody here tonight. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a wonderful night. And I'll leave it off to Pandora.
Okay, you would think I'm used to multitasking, but that was kind of weird there. But anyway, did anybody else have any other questions or any comments that they would like to make at this time? We'll be glad to entertain those. But if you have questions that you can't think of right now and you think of them later, you can either email us, call us, or anytime. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. And Vicky, thank you again. Even though you had a little difficulty getting connected, you got on, you didn't give up, determination. Yes, so I'm glad you got on.
Yeah, I think we should stop here because it is 8 o'clock. And I just appreciate everybody putting up with all of these Zoom-based antics that we've been through. I think it just goes to show how nice it's going to be when we can finally get back together.
Yes.
The League of Women Voters Chatham unit has been having people watch the Board of Elections at every meeting, and we would really encourage other citizens to join us. As Pandora said, you can sign up on the county website and be notified of the meeting dates, and it's really very interesting and very rewarding to see how diligent the staff is and also how committed all of the board members are to working together and making voting accessible and fair throughout Chatham County. So I just thank you, all of you, for all the work you put into this presentation, and I think we will end here.
Okay,
Thank you all very much.
you're welcome. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.